It was July 1st, 1833, and the moon was just beginning to rise over the small town of Tiverton, Rhode Island. Catherine Reed Arnold Williams stepped onto the wooden front porch and rapped on the door of the old home. It swung open, and a tall, thin man in a top hat greeted the writer, steeling himself for what he was certain would be a solemn visit. The man who answered the door, John Durfee, nodded respectfully to Catherine as she stood in the darkness. The farmer was known for his hospitality, and Catherine was familiar with his reputation. She was grateful that he had agreed to this meeting, morbid as it seemed. Both hoped to gain some understanding of what had happened on his farm the previous December. Durfee closed the door and stepped outside. The 35-year-old Durfee was an important, anxious witness. He had been the first person to find Sarah Maria Cornell's body that cold day half a year earlier. Catherine was determined to record Durfee's story accurately, so she reported to his farm that night for a tour. This property was owned by Richard Durfee II, John's 75-year-old father, who was a well-liked deacon and a retired captain with the Rhode Island militia. But it was John who ran the day-to-day operations. John Durfee was a profitable farmer, a justice of the peace, a widely respected town councilman, and a member of one of the most influential families in the area. Because of Durfee's seemingly sincere benevolence, the town leaders had appointed him overseer of the poor. The overseer, a position originally created in England and later adopted by governments in the fledgling American colonies, was tasked with protecting the destitute in their parishes. Traditionally, the overseer would control a small budget for this purpose, funded by collecting a tax from residents, but his duties also included distributing food and money and managing the local poorhouse. As the pair stood together, Catherine inquired about John's family. His father, as well as his mother Patience, would remain inside the house this evening, along with John's wife Nancy and their 6 children. The Durfee family had been in this area since the mid-1600s, beginning with Richard Durfee Sr., a descendant of several passengers on the Mayflower. Eventually, John's father married Patience Borden, a member of the later infamous Borden clan. That family plays a prominent role in this story, too, as you'll read later. The Durfees and the Bordens, Catherine wrote, were 2 of the 3 families who had established Tiverton. The land in this vicinity belonged principally to the families of Borden, Bowen, and Durfee, she wrote in her 1833 book Fall River about this tragedy. 3 families from whom the principal part of the stationary inhabitants sprung. It was a prosperous, fertile area. So flourishing has business been there that there is scarce a mechanic, trader, or even laborer who has been there for any length of time who has not acquired an estate of his own, Catherine wrote. The Durfees and the Bordens would remain pillars of the community for generations, but all families are flawed, and some are plagued with characters with a penchant for brutality. The Bordens, who would come to infamy a few generations later when Lizzie Borden was tried and acquitted of the infamous axe murders that killed her father and stepmother, were clearly not immune to violence. John Durfee, by all accounts, was prosperous, compassionate, and altruistic, a rare intersection of traits in the 1800s. It was important to Catherine and me to establish both Durfee's reputation and his apparent character because he had been a crucial witness. He had sounded the alarm about Sarah Cornell's death. Catherine Williams was determined to record everything involving this case, including an extensive interview with John Durfee. The farmer described what he had discovered that frigid December morning. Durfee needed coaxing to recall such a traumatizing sight. He might have felt reticent because such horrid details surely would offend his guest's feminine sensibilities, yet he responded to her questions candidly, starting with a trip he had taken with his horses early that day.
To keep listening to this audiobook, I've left you a link in the description so you can do it, at no cost thanks to Audible's 30-day free trial.